Thank you for inviting me today here to speak. Unfortunately, I don't have any props or a PowerPoint to go along with some of the talking points that I really want to go ahead and talk about. One of the things you may be wondering is, what is an agent that's worked counterintelligence for roughly the last 7 years working cyber matters? And I think the important thing to understand is when we think of cyber matters, we usually think about the bits and bytes that are behind a lot of the cyber attacks. So, as the doctor alluded to, the Trojans, the worms, those types of things, but we don't actually think about the actual people who are behind the computers that are conducting a lot of these attacks. And so what we're trying to do here at the FBI now is take folks that have a background in intelligence and use those philosophies that are used for basically catching spies, for lack of a better term, to go ahead and address the cyber threat. And so that's where traditional CI meets cyber. So traditional CI usually involves a lot of legwork in that, a traditional intelligence service, whether it's, for example, the Mossad, the SVR, wherever they are, boots on the ground, trying to go out and develop assets and a human base for information for their intelligence gathering. What cyber does is it flattens the playing field, and it makes that very, very easy. So whereas you may spend years trying to develop agents to get at classified information, with cyber you can get that information literally within a matter of weeks, depending upon how sophisticated you are. And so I don't know if everyone's familiar with the book by Tom Friedman, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. There's a good chapter in there about super empowered individuals, and that's sort of the age that we're entering into now, where the cost of setting up a cyber warfare apparatus is very low. Cuba can go ahead and set up a cyber warfare apparatus just as well as Russia and be just as effective. All it takes is the brains and the technology to go ahead and do it. And so the cost and the availability have basically gone in opposite directions, where the cost has lowered over the last 10 years and the availability of cyber tools are available to everyone. And so that's what we're trying to do here in the FBI, is to go ahead and look at it from the perspective of the people that are behind the emerging threats. And so that's what the FBI's role is to go out into the private sector and go ahead and make people aware of the threat. And that's really what it's going to take to go ahead and actually address the cyber threat, is a public-private partnership. There's a lot of legislation. We were speaking earlier about this. Obviously everything that the government does, a lot of it's classified, and so it's difficult to do a lot of the sharing of information that the public or the private sector needs in order to go ahead and address the threat. And so there's legislation that's being worked on now. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the news once the election cycle is over, to go ahead and establish a more of a coherent dialogue between the public and private sector. And the private sector, to its credit, has come a long way, along with the government as well, in being able to go ahead and being able to address the threat. But fundamentally, the threat to the private sector as well as to the public sector comes down to two things, in which is awareness and cost. And so and that's one of the things I think that we're seeing as a trend in the cyber arena, is the big players in the private sector and in the public sector are going to be able to go ahead and take care of themselves. They have not unlimited resources, but they have the resources to go ahead and spend the money that it would take to go ahead and address the cyber threat. It's these mid to lower level players that are not able to go ahead and afford the money to go ahead and have the cyber infrastructure set up to be able to address the threat. So, for example, whereas a financial institution is doing a financial merger or a deal, they're going to use a law firm. They're going to use firms to go ahead and come in and do their due diligence. The cyber actors and the cyber threat countries are very aware of this, and rather than targeting the actual financial institution themselves, they would rather go ahead and target the law firms, and then as well as some of the due diligence companies, to go ahead and get the same information that they could, would take them weeks, if not months, to get from the actual bigger financial institution. And so that is a huge problem. And I think what we're seeing as we're able to go out and take down the walls of communication, we'll see a lot more sharing as it relates to cyber as a whole. And then some of the newer emerging threats related to cyber, like I said, are these middle to lower level players. So
That's it.
that's it.